attitude is the opposite.
High fly ball, deep left field. Oh, 27 does it again.
God, Fernando Tatis Jr. with a 2-run shot has the Padres on the board. Ball and 2 strikes to Shohei here. Oh,
Got it, got it, got it! 33!
Oh, wow. Where did that one go? That's his 11th home run. Driven out to deep center field. Going back, Springer, turning, looking, see ya! Oh, what a shot by Judge! The Yankees lead 1-0.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 22 of our free baseball podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. God, it's going to be a long one today, so make sure you got your snacks, water, whatever you need. We're going to do a monthly breakdown, as well as maybe talk about some all-star standings, some all-star voting standings, since in the second phase now. Got a lot to go over, but we're going to kick it off, as always, with our introduction. Talk about some hot weeks from last week. We're going to kick it off with Rhys Hoskins, who won an NL Player of the Week, of course. 25 plate appearances in the last week, 421 average, 520 on base, 1.158 slug. Ridiculous. 6 runs, 4 dingers, 5 RBIs, tied for first in all of baseball with 0.8 FWAR on the season. Really good stat line by Rhys standards. 257 average, 350 on base, 500 slug, scored 44 times, 17 dingers, 42 RBIs, 134 WRC plus, which is very, very good. Mr. Fantasy Man, Jake Crumpler, talk to me about Rhys Hoskins.
Sure. Yeah, he's been killing it lately. He's been sort of going in waves, and I think that is something that we've come to expect of Hoskins, where he's sort of like, I don't want to say Joey Gallo because he doesn't strike out like Gallo, but he's only striking out 24.5% as a matter of fact. But he's a guy who will have power surges, and we saw that when he first debuted. I think that was 2017, and he was just hitting everything for a home run, and he's doing that again this season, not at that same rate obviously, but it's he'll go on a binge of 4 home runs in a week like he did this week, and then he'll go a few weeks without a home run at all. But yeah, he had 4 homers in a 5-game span to finish out the week, and he's been looking really good. He was my breakout candidate for first baseman in fantasy. I like to say breakout with quotes because he was near a top 100 pick type of guy. So he's not really it. You would think that he's actually broken out already, but I was saying, he's going to make his first all-star team, that kind of stuff. So I don't think that's going to be the case this year. He's obviously not in the running for first baseman, as we'll talk about later, for the starting position this year. But I think he is a really good first baseman, and he sort of just has some crazy power. He walks over 12% of the time, and this last week he was really killing it. And yeah, 17 homers on the season, pretty good, putting him on pace for 35. Really good season. I think this is putting him on pace for the best season of his career other than that rookie year. Second best season of his career. He's 4 WRC plus behind 2020. So yeah, I mean, I guess that does count. Yeah, this would be his best season by WRC plus so far in a season of more than 50 games.
Yeah, he's also only 0.2 FWAR off of last season's mark, just in home runs, of course, which is insane.
Murder that.
He only played 107 games last year, but he's right at the 80 game threshold. But I would expect him to continue the pace that he's on. He's, like you said, he's a player that kind of when he's playing good and when he's hitting, it comes in bunches for him. And hopefully for the Phillies' sake that it just kind of stays that way. Maybe we'll continue this hot streak for a little bit. Staying in the NL East, another hot week, this time from Washington Nationals pitcher Patrick Corbin, who has been really, really struggling to start the season, but picked it up really good last week. The 28th against Pittsburgh, went 8 innings, gave 5 hits, 1 earned, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts, which is really, really solid from Corbin. Got 20 whiffs in that game, 39.8 called strikes plus whiffs percentage, which is just crazy. And then again, on the 4th of July, yesterday, the 7-inning pitch, this time 8 hits, not so hot, 1 earned again, 1 walk, 4 Ks. We got 9 whiffs this time. Good for 22.7% called strikes plus whiffs. That ranks 4th among pitchers last week with 0.8 F/WAR on the season. Of course, said he's not doing so hot. Fair for the Nationals, who themselves are not doing so hot. 4-10 win-loss. 88 and 2/3 innings pitched, 19% K percentage, 5.68 ERA, which is disgusting, and a 1.67 WHIP, which is also very, very bad. But more starts like this, and he'll bring that down, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because God, that contract is just miserable.
Yeah, he those season long marks I think are the worst among qualified pitchers in the majors. So he has
awful, man.
he's got the worst ERA, he's got the worst WHIP, but this last week he was doing really well. That first start you read off 20 whiffs, 39.8% CSW. That is like elite. That is something you only see from like the aces of baseball. So it's pretty impressive that Corbin still has the ace potential that he had, just a couple of years ago. 2019 he was at that level, and so he still hasn't lost that. It's pretty much just like when his slider is on, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball, but it really goes in and out. And he followed that up with a start that was good, but it was definitely lucky, where he had a whip above 1 and he only got 9 whiffs, and a 22.7% CSW is absolutely, like, you don't want to say like something is terrible. That is like not good. Especially it's like when you have a 22.7% CSW and you allow 1 run, he's getting lucky. One of the guys in my fantasy league sent a tweet that was quote tweeting the Nationals, saying that Patrick Corbin's last 3 starts, he has 19 innings, 22 Ks, and a 2.37 ERA. And the quote tweet was, he's been an ace since Roe v. Wade got overturned, and not to make light of that situation, but and that they were just like, now why is that? And I was just like, oh, I think it's because he faced the Orioles, the Pirates, and the Marlins across his last 3 starts. So that's probably why he's been so good. But yeah, so I think he's just been pretty lucky with matchups recently. He probably had the feel for his slider in that one game versus the Pirates, but I don't see Corbin turning it around anytime soon. And I think his season-long numbers sort of prove that pretty well.
Yeah, like I said, that contract, not so good. They're locked into him.
It started off good.
It did start off good. Of course, they won the World Series, and they pay him again 100 times out of 100 if it meant winning a World Series. But they're kind of hamstrung by him if he's playing like this the next couple of years. Do $23 million this year, 24 next year, and then his last year, super backloaded contract. He's due $35 million.
Holy moly!
Yeah, so gonna need some production out of Patrick Corbin, a guy who you're getting production out of. We already talked about our NL Player of the Week, our AL Player of the Week, of course, the rookie sensation, Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners. Last week, 28 plate appearances, 360 average, 393 on base, 880 slug, scored 7 times, 3 dingers, 6 RBIs, a steal, of course. On the season, really good, 275 average, 335 on base, 489 slug this time, 47 runs, 15 dingers, 43 RBIs, 20 steals. That's good for a 140 WRC plus, which is very, very good. He is an elite hitter already. And he's 20 years old. I mean, we're gonna see this guy for a long time, hopefully. Rookie phenom, Julio Rodriguez, basically everyone's AL Rookie of the Year pick. I could be different in mine. Don't read that article from my side, but J-Rod, he's a beast.
He is. He's been killing it so far. I say that a lot, but this time it's not lightly. He's been one of the best players in baseball, and it's impressive. You said he's 20. He's 21, so pretty much same thing anyway.
You can buy a beer now. You can buy a beer to celebrate his Player of the Week.
Yes, sir. He won't be Juan Soto in the World Series, in the playoffs, having to wait until the World Series to turn 21 and celebrate with the team. That was one of my favorite parts about that World Series run, was Juan Soto was like 20 years old all the way up until like his birthday was like in the middle of the World Series. So when they won, he could finally drink legally for the first time after they won the World Series. So it was sick. But nonetheless, Julio is something else this year. He's hitting home runs, stealing bases. He's getting better every month of the season. If you read my June monthly standouts article, Rodriguez was on there, and I wrote that he's improved in every month so far this season. I think he went from like a 60 something WRC plus in April, and then 152 to 162 in June. So he just keeps getting better, and that's going to happen as he adjusts to pitchers. And he's a talent that is going to stand out no matter what. Like, he is in that territory of Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto, Vladdy, just guys that have all of the talent in the world, were really great in the minors, or come up super young and just immediately hit the ground running. And I think a couple of the most important things to note about his season thus far, he is the fastest player ever to reach 15 homers and 20 steals. Saw that on Twitter earlier today, which that's crazy in itself. And that puts him on pace to become just the second rookie ever to have a 30-30 season, which would tie him with Mike Trout as the only other guy to do that. So if you're in the territory of being you next to Mike Trout, I mean, that says everything in and of itself. So Julio is something else, and I love what he's doing. I love the fire he plays with, and how much fun he seems to have, and just how freaking good he is.
Yeah. Like you said, Mike Trout, that's pretty good company to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're super excited to see J-Rod play when we heard he made the roster, the opening day roster to start the season. And like you said, I mean, he started out really slow, and we were all kind of like, is it time to pump the brakes? But we all kind of knew like this was coming. He's a special player, and he's a special prospect that we'll hopefully get to watch play for many, many years to come. Just a great player. Another baseball great, maybe, to talk about. I know there's some mixed opinions. We always talk about the City Connect jerseys when they get dropped. The San Diego Padres, of course, dropped theirs to kind of mixed opinions. I know we'll talk about them a little bit. Do you have the picture loaded up? There you go. Immediate thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Colorful.
Colorful is
interesting.
Like an understatement.
Yeah, different. I like the jerseys that are different from the regular, home and away jerseys. So these definitely fill that check mark in that box. And it's interesting. I sent you a tweet when it first came out of some guy. I think it was I forgot his name. Oh well, he was talking about
Ben Porter.
Yes, thank you.
Rainbow Sherbet.
Good. Yeah, he's a good follow on Twitter. Yeah, but Rainbow Sherbet, definitely. It's definitely colorful. It's got those the same tones as that sort of ice cream. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm excited to see how it looks like on the field. It's definitely something. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you didn't like them immediately. Like, you literally sent a picture of them to me, and it just said it said they're all over the place. So I kind of agree, but I like them. They're weird, and they're very different than what the Padres normally wear. I specifically really like the hat. I'm not crazy on like the jersey. I think the hat is super sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like it's supposed to represent their binational community, because it's got the skyline of Baja California and whatever, or something like that, and just a bunch of stuff dealing with like their Mexican fan base, as well as like their American fan base, and like the San Diego skyline and sunset, stuff like that. I saw something that said it was supposed to be the colors of like this roller coaster in San Diego, like the Giant Dipper.
I saw that too.
But I don't know. I can see it, but I also can't at the same time. That also seems kind of like a goofy thing to be like, oh, well, here's our City Connect. It looks like a roller coaster.
Yeah,
it's a roller coaster of color. That's just kind of all over. But yeah, I mean, maybe it looks better in game.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, because right now for me it's like, I think it's middle of the pack. Like for me, it's like right next to, I don't know, I'd have it around the Angels one, where it's just like I'm just sort of indifferent about it. But this seems like one of those jerseys that could grow on me as it's worn more and more. Unlike the Dodgers City Connect jerseys.
Yeah. I like the font. I mean, I think the font's pretty sweet, and I like the numbers in the hat, but I'm not crazy about the color combo. But
it's definitely interesting. It's definitely a unique jersey.
Yeah. That unique is definitely what I would call it. Moving on to our next topic, non-City Connect related this time. We talked about Patrick Corbin, and we talked about Juan Soto too. Turning 21 in the World Series, he's due for an extension. the next few years, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
if he actually chooses to sign one, because he rejected the most recent offer from the Washington Nationals, which I believe was due $375 million, I think was the number. Yeah, I mean, he's worth more than that.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious. I honestly, if the Nationals keep lowballing him, I really think that he just won't sign. And he's just going to hit free agency. Of course, he's a Scott Boras guy. We'll talk about him a million times. But, I said it in our big group chat too. Why would he re-sign with the Nationals if they're not going to give him the money that he thinks he's worth? Because he's clearly rejected more than one extension offer at this point. Boras guys typically hit free agency. It's not very often that they don't hit free agency. And the Nationals are like very much a team in flux. I mean, they're in the middle of a rebuild that doesn't really look like it'll take shape until, a couple years down the line. They have a couple pieces that are pretty good, like Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray. Cade Cavalli looks pretty solid. Lane Thomas, I guess, if you want to include him, he's been okay. But like, they're also supposed to be getting new ownership. So what would it look like if, the Lerners offer him this big extension and he signs it, and then it's like, okay, well, here's these new owners that don't like the rebuild and they want to start it over again. They're just going to waste like a large chunk of Juan Soto's career playing on a team that has absolutely no interest in competing. I don't know. I think this is really like dire straits for the Nationals, because they're going to lose Juan Soto, honestly. And if you're a Nationals fan and this team doesn't extend Juan Soto, or they keep lowballing him to the point that he's just kind of going to rebuff every offer because it's not even close, because he's basically going to be a generational hitter. He's having a down season. And he's still unbelievable.
134 WRC plus in a down season.
He's hitting like 225. He's got a 134 WRC plus.
Yeah.
He walks more than he strikes out pretty much
way
all the
more.
time. Yeah.
4.5% more.
Hits a ton of home runs. Super exciting, really fun personality, good kid. If they just let him walk without giving him a suitable offer, find a new team. Find a new team to watch, because they don't deserve your money.
Yeah, he really is a kid. I know he's younger than I am, and I'm pretty sure that means he's younger than you are.
Yeah,
at 23 years old. Makes me feel old that like this guy has been in the league for 5 years and is younger than I am. Nonetheless, yeah, everything you said is very fair. I don't know why he would want to stay on a team that doesn't have any ideas or have any prospects of competing or prospects in their minor leagues. But they I don't know, they're just all over the place. One of the big things I see for like players wanting to stay with the team that drafted them is to like bring a championship to the city. Juan Soto did that in his second season. Yeah. So he really has like no reason to stay unless the team is like, oh, we're going to give you $450 million, which is, what he deserves. Maybe not quite that much, but definitely close to 400 million. And he's going to hit free agency going into his age 26 season. So he's going to get so much money. He could sign like a 14-year deal, and that would take him through his age 40 season. And that would probably take him through his age 39 season. But nonetheless, that would be crazy. A 15-year deal that could net him $500 million or something. I just don't see, like, there's no way Boras lets him do it, because it's not like he can't re-sign with the Nationals if he goes to free agency, because then they're just going to have to up their bid to outbid the other teams. So I don't know why Boras is just too good of an agent to let him avoid this opportunity. So yeah, I mean, I really don't see him signing an extension, especially with the direction that the Nationals have been going in. They've just not been good. I'm sure he loves playing there, but he's going to have tons of financial opportunities when he hits free agency.
Right. Like you said, I mean, he's already basically a legend for Washington sports. I mean, he won them a World Series, which Washington has been like a very burgeoning sports town for a while. I mean, like, the Capitals are good. The Washington, whatever they're called, Commanders now, they're terrible. Just ignore them. But the Nationals were good for a while, and then they now are not, obviously. You look at, the NL East standings and see that. And Juan Soto, like you said, Boras guys hit free agency. It doesn't mean he won't re-sign with the Nationals, but if you're a Nationals fan, expect him to hit free agency, and expect basically every team in baseball should offer him as much money as they feasibly can. There's not a single team in baseball that should just be like, okay, Juan Soto, not interested. I don't want him.
Yeah.
Every team in baseball will want Juan Soto.
Except maybe the Dodgers. That's okay. That'd be okay with me if they weren't interested.
They'll probably still offer him because they have
I know, I'm joking. I'm just
endless
fingers
amounts
crossed.
of money. Hopefully they don't sign him. That'd just be
Yeah.
annoying. But yeah, I mean, expect him to hit free agency. I would probably also expect him not to resign if the Nationals aren't going to give him several hundred Brinks trucks loads full of money.
Mhm.
So yeah, a man who did unfortunately receive quite a lot of money from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Freddie Freeman, who made his return to Atlanta last week, fired his agent after apparently discovering an offer from the Braves that probably would have seen him remain an Atlanta Brave.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, what happened here? He's obviously a Dodger now. Fired his agent. He's kind of made it clear, like, okay, well, I would have rather stayed with the Braves. Kind of a weird situation now because he's locked into a 6-year deal with the Dodgers, and they're not going to let him go. They're not just going to be like,
Mhm.
okay, we're sorry, we'll trade you back to the Braves. Like that's just weird. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? We kind of talked about it a little bit, but this was a really, really weird thing that happened in baseball over the last week.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those that got a lot of attention from the media because it's really easy to like write articles that people are going to read about. You got two massive fan bases in the Dodgers and the Braves that are really interested in a star player like this. But the whole situation there was, don't want to say awkward, but it was all pretty weird, very dramatic. It was a dramatic return to Atlanta. He was crying in all his press conferences. We talked about this last week. He was crying on the field and stuff. Nothing wrong with crying, just pointing it out that he was very emotional about this situation, about his return. He got his World Series ring. He received a huge standing ovation when he got the ring, when he took his first at bat. And I think he hit a home run. Maybe I'm mistaken there. He's a really good player. It's just, yeah, it is really
I'm
weird.
not
Why
sure.
would he fire his agent? It was reported that it was because he, like you said, was that he wasn't told about the offer that was brought up by the Braves. But I don't know. I find that hard to believe that like such a big agent would like, sort of have like mistreatment, bad practicing of his agency stuff. So it seems weird that would be the case. And, I don't know. It's hard to believe, it seems like something that, like I don't want to say the media could make up, but, that they would misinterpret and sort of misreport. And I'm sure there are other reasons that Freddie, got rid of his agent. He doesn't really need an agent at this point. Like you said, he's got a 6-year deal. He's probably going to just finish out his career with the Dodgers. I think the most interesting thing that came out of this was Clayton Kershaw's quotes where he was talking about like, hey, like don't make us like second fiddle. Like I get it. Like this is all like very emotional for you. Like you enjoyed your time, but like, come on, like we're like a really good team. You got to like get your ass together, basically get your act together. And, like, we're going to the World Series with this team. So I think it's interesting that his teammates are like, I don't want to say sick of all his emotional dramaticness from the last week, but I'm sure they're starting to become like, hey, like you're on our team now. Like the past is the past. Like we get it. Like it's hard to leave your team like that, but you gotta, step up and make this team your number one priority.
Yeah, I think the whole thing was just weird. Of course, I mean, everyone kind of saw it. Freddie Freeman didn't want to leave the Braves, and it did seem at the time, at least for me, and I'm not sure if you felt the same way, that his agent or the negotiations honestly kind of overplayed their hand a little bit. Where, okay, well, we want this X amount of money from the Braves for Freddie. If not, we're just gonna go. And the offer that he ended up getting was 6 years, 162. I believe there's like $58 million of that deferred. So he was basically getting a 27 million AAV. I think the Braves ended up offering like 5 years, 140 was their best offer, which was a higher AAV because there was no deferred money. At least is what I'm seeing. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's very clear he wanted to / still wants to be in Atlanta, and now that's like a weird situation that you have to broach with Freddie and with the Dodgers and with the Braves, who have obviously already replaced him and signed his replacement. It's like, well, is Freddie Freeman just going to kind of get over it, or is he going to like sulk? Is like, how does this affect the Dodgers
So
team?
many memes.
Yeah, how is this going to affect the Dodgers team chemistry a little bit? Where it's like, okay, one of our stars hates being here. Like, but we have him for 6 years. We have him for 5 years after this. What do we do? Like, we'll talk about it a little bit like here, but it's something we'll have to see is like potentially is like we revisit maybe like the trade deadline if they want to make a move, or probably not this year. I can't see it, but maybe in the off season. Because I don't think this is over. I really don't. Freddie Freeman, who's currently self-represented, could definitely try to angle for a move out of LA. But where's he going to go? I mean, it's not like he can really go back to the Braves unless they're willing to move off of like Olsen.
Extended Olsen, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, and I think Freddie Freeman's right to be bitter if this is really true. Of course, Excel has kind of refuted this, and honestly, if the agent did do this, it's insanely unethical to just not tell him about an offer. Like that's unethical. And
yeah, that's why I don't believe it. Because
right.
Everybody's just gonna like fire him then if they hear that is the case.
Like he's basically if he did that, he's persona non grata. Like he should lose basically every client that he has. That's crazy. So I can't imagine that being like a real thing. But there's got to be something going on for him to fire him. Yeah, weird thing, weird baseball. It's fun news. Not talking about more baseball drama. We talked about the All-Star ballot a couple episodes ago. Make sure you go watch those over at YouTube, and check out all of our articles on the Sub. We'll probably talk about the All-Star team closer to the All-Star game, more All-Star voting. But the All-Star ballot has updated to the second phase now. Let's run down some candidates, and who do you think is the clear choice from the two?
Yeah. So what the second stage is now they put it down to 2 guys per position per league. So then you're deciding between who you think the starter should be. So we'll just have like little tiny mini debates. Yeah. So it's like they have 2 guys. It's the top 2 voters from each position for each league. And we're just now deciding which one of those 2 is going to be the starter. So first base in the AL is Ty France and Vlad Guerrero Jr. This one is interesting. I'm upset that Luis Arias isn't in this running to be a starter. Who do you got?
This one's tough for me. I think I said Ty France was my pick last time. So just for consistency's sake, I think I'm still going to ride with Ty France to be the starter. But yeah, I mean, Vlad's making it really hard. Of course, he kind of started out really hot, cooled down really fast. But Ty France, I mean, 157 WRC plus. He's hitting 316. He's also just kind of he'd be a first time All-Star. So that kind of leads into it. I think a lot of people tend to vote for guys like that. So I'm going to ride with Ty France on this one. Although, I mean, I love Vlad. He was my MVP pick before the start of the season. So I don't know. This is like Ty France by the narrowest margin for me.
I think it's also very close. France has been injured for the last couple of weeks as well. So the team acquired Carlos Santana, like we talked about. I think that was last episode. So that's definitely playing into it. I think I'm going to go with Vladdy. He's got 9 more homers than France and only OPS that's only 17 points lower. So it's very close there. And I think just the fact that Vladdy's not injured right now gives him the edge for me. I think if Ty France comes back for the next 2 weeks or so, or a week, and just shows that, that the injury is not bothering him. This is not like an MVP sort of thing. It's more just like, like All-Star voting. Who do you like more, basically? But yeah, I'm going to go with Vladdy. I don't want to make myself look even stupider voting for Ty France as the bust candidate that I had in the preseason.
Yeah. And not super great on that one. So moving on to the NL first base starter debate. We got New York Mets, Polar Bear, Pete Alonso, and podcast favorite Paul Goldschmidt. Who do you think is the starter here? Because I'm pretty sure I already know the answer.
Yeah, the answer is Paul Goldschmidt. Pete Alonso definitely deserves an all-star selection in general, but he is not the starter. He does have 22 home runs, which I think is the first, or I think it's the first most in the National League. And but Goldie is still batting 340. He's got 19 home runs, 1,042 OPS. So pretty hard to vote against Goldie there. He's the clear runaway, might even be the NL MVP front runner as well.
Yeah, as try as I might to make an excuse to put Pete Alonso as the starter. You look at Paul Goldschmidt and you see that he has 191 WRC plus, and he has over 4 WAR already. Yeah, I mean, it's Paul Goldschmidt, and it's currently by a mile. So Pete Alonso will probably make up ground. Paul Goldschmidt kind of has a little bit of a, like, if he hits a speed bump a little bit, Pete Alonso is on his heels. He's going to hit 1 million home runs. He's on a team. He's got a ton of home runs or a ton of RBI as well. Also 150 WRC plus, like 149, 150, which is insane in its own right. It's just Paul Goldschmidt is like, I mean, he's probably the NL, like you said, he's probably the NL MVP right now. It's hard to not be like, oh, well, I'm not going to put him as a starter. Yes, Paul Goldschmidt.
Yep. And then, all right, let's move on to second base. We've got in the American League, we've got Jose Altuve and Santiago Espinal. I think this one's pretty easy. What about you?
Yeah, it's Altuve. He's so good. Unfortunately for every Yankees fans, Isaiah Hansen included. But yeah, I mean, Jose Altuve, he's just a beast. Espinal is cool too. I mean, he's, of course, just not quite at the level of Jose Altuve. I mean, it's hard to make this close enough of a debate to be like, oh, well, Espinal deserves to be there for X, Y, and Z. He should be an all-star, and deservedly so. But Jose Altuve's been on a different level this year. Yeah,
definitely. It's clearly Altuve. 895 OPS, 16 dingers, as opposed to Espinal's 6 dingers and 730 OPS. It's pretty clear.
Yeah. All right. For the NL side, it's going to be the Atlanta Braves, Ozzie Albies, and Miami Marlins, Jazz Chisholm Jr. Who do you have here as your NL second base pick?
Yeah, well, Ozzie Albies has been out for like the last couple of weeks with, I forget what the injury was, broke something. So I think it's pretty clearly Jazz Chisholm Jr. here. There wasn't a lot of competition at this position anyway. Jazz got 14 dingers and an 860 OPS, so that's another pretty easy one for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same here. I'm mainly just excited to see Jazz Chisholm mic'd up for the All-Star game. I think that'd be pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah.
So
the boy.
It's Jazz Chisholm. Third base, this one's probably going to be one of the closer debates in my mind. On the AL side, it is Boston Red Sox, Rafael Devers, and Cleveland Guardians, Jose Ramirez. Who do you think's the starter here, and who do you think's the starter here right now, and who do you think it's going to be closer to the All-Star game itself?
Yeah, well, I think there's only like 2 more weeks. There's going to be like 2 weeks of voting. So there's really not much time for anybody to change any narratives or anything.
They're pretty close right now, I think.
They are. Yeah, no, they're definitely close. That's why I think it's neck and neck. And I think Devers is going to be the choice, but if it was up to me, it'd be Jose Ramirez. He's not only is he just not appreciated enough, which I think he should get the start no matter what. He just walks so much, strikes out so little, and is just an amazing player on all sides of the ball. And Devers is really good, batting .327 with 17 dingers and an OPS higher than Jose Ramirez is by 11 points. But yeah, Jose Ramirez is just, one of a kind player. He's a freaking switch hitter doing this. So he's my choice. But I think there's a very, very clear case for Devers.
Yeah. I think if it's based on who will actually be the starter, I think it'll be Devers, just because fan voting for the Red Sox naturally is going to be 10 times higher than fan voting for the Cleveland Guardians. But if it were up to me, I'd put J-Ram there. I mean, he's so impressive. Devers is a great player too in his own right, of course. But Jose Ramirez, like you said, he's a switch hitter. He also steals bags. He walks more than he strikes out. I mean, he's like a stats nerd's like dream of a player.
Yeah.
I love
exactly.
J-Ram. He's like me. Yeah, me too. So if it were up to me, J-Ram, I really think it's going to be Devers, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. Devers, of course, deserves it, but we both really want J-Ram there. On the NL side, Paul Goldschmidt's best friend. Also, we talk about him every time on the pod. Nolan Arenado of the St. Louis Cardinals, and other podcast favorite, especially of mine, Manny Machado. So, of course, just getting it out of the way, Manny Machado is going to be my pick here. I love Machado. I think still he's kind of slowed down, but I mean, I love Machado. I will be voting for Manny Machado to get the start here personally. It's Machado for me.
Yeah, it's been really close. I think Arenado sort of slowed down for a month and a half after his incredible April, but he's been storming back. We're going to talk about him in a second for a couple of notable performances that he had over the past week. But yeah, he's up to 17 homers and an 890 OPS. Definitely better than last season, his first season in St. Louis. But even though Machado has also slowed down in his own right, his numbers are still above Arenado's in everything except for the home run and RBI department. So he does have a 920 OPS, which is 30 points higher than Arenado. He's batting 318, 12 dingers. I think I also got to give Machado give him the benefit of the doubt here, but I think there is a chance that, I mean, the Cardinals fans are really good at all-star voting is what I'm going to say there. But I think there is a chance that if Arenado continues, like has another hot week or two, that his numbers could surpass Machado, which makes like people who aren't fans of either teams, like look at the numbers and be like, oh, well, this guy has a higher OPS and more home runs. Like, I think that's an easy choice. So I think it could be close. Right now it's Machado for sure.
Yeah. Machado, of course, was the early MVP favorite. Kind of fell off still for WAR for Machado, 4.2, I believe, compared to Nolan's 4. He's got a higher WRC plus. That just kind of cements it for me. He's just more. Nolan's a good hitter. Manny Machado has just been super, super elite this year. I got to vote for my man, Manny. Moving on to kind of a weird debate, I think, the AL shortstop. It's going to be the Chicago White Sox, Tim Anderson, and the Toronto Blue Jays, Bo Bichette. Who's your pick here? Because I think this one's a really, really, really strange one.
It is strange because Tim Anderson missed a few weeks with an injury and came back and hasn't been as strong as he was before the injury. And Bo Bichette has had a really down year so far. I would know. He's on my home league fantasy team, and he's been not anywhere close to what he was the last couple of years. I really thought he was like an elite guy for sure now, but his strikeout rate has risen. A lot of different stuff. He's only got a 722 OPS. He's batting 257 with 12 dingers, while Tim Anderson is at 326 average with only 5 home runs. He's got an 804 OPS. I think my choice is Tim Anderson here. I think if it was anybody else other than Bo Bichette, then I think there would be a case. I know there were other AL shortstops. I don't know if Bogarts was on there instead of Bo Bichette, then I think it would be closer, but I think it's clearly Tim Anderson here, even though I'm not sure he is the starter, even though he was my choice when we talked about all-star voting a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, from these two, it's Tim Anderson because Bo Bichette shouldn't be in this ballot. But of course, it's a fan vote, so he's going to get in there.
There's so many Blue Jays on here.
Yeah, there's a lot of Blue Jays in this list, but like he's probably the least deserving. It's kind of like a Royals situation where they had like basically everybody in the All-Star game. If it was between the two candidates that it should be, which is Tim Anderson and Jeremy Pena should be the starting shortstop. But yeah, I mean, from these two, it's Tim Anderson just because Bo Bichette's he's had a solid year still. I mean, it's a 102 WRC plus 1.5 WAR, which is not good by his standards, but still, I mean, it's okay. It's Tim Anderson. On the NL side, we got the Atlanta Braves, Dansby Swanson, and the Los Angeles Dodgers, Trey Turner. What are your thoughts on this debate? Well, I kind of just look at some stats to see what even Dansby Swanson is doing. I know he's been good, but
bro, he has been insane. Yeah. I want to have you guess who you think I'm gonna pick.
I think it's gonna be Dansby Swanson because he hates the Dodgers. But I could also guess it might be Dansby Swanson because of his 139 WRC plus and 4 WAR. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna have to join you there. It's Dansby Swanson. I knew he was really picking it up, but man,
both of them,
Dansby Swanson,
both Trey Turner and Dansby started off really slow in April, and they both turned it around in the last couple of months. Have been really good.
I love Dansby Swanson's breakout because I saw a tweet like a long time ago that said, like, you judge a shortstop by being league average as Dansby Swanson is the league average. And then I guess he saw that and he was like, all right, bet. And now he's like, okay, I'm like a top 5 shortstop in all of baseball from now on. And he just rakes. He's obviously a great fielder. I mean, he basically has always been. But yeah, I mean, he's a beast. So shout out to Dansby. He was the number 1 overall pick. I love him. So I hope he succeeds. Yeah, he's showing it. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick Dansby Swanson here too. No offense to Trey Turner. If you're watching, you should totally watch this podcast. Trey Turner would be pretty sweet. But yeah, Dansby, he's my pick.
Now to the easiest
catcher
position.
The AL. Oh yeah. The AL catcher. This was such a stupid pick. I wish Isaiah was here to talk about it so we'd have a dissenting pick, but I basically already know what you're going to pick from here. The AL catcher starters are going to be the Toronto Blue Jays, Alejandro Kirk, and the New York Yankees, Jose Trevino. Go ahead and get it out of the way, Jake. Who are you picking?
excuse me, Alejandro Kirk. I'm joking. Trevino definitely has a case, not over Kirk, but just as an all-star catcher, because there really aren't many choices, especially in the American League. But Kirk has been one of the best hitters in baseball, let alone his position being catcher. So I think this one's pretty clear, and the National League is just as clear as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's Kirk. Alejandro Kirk has been the best catcher in the AL. He's got a 159 WRC plus. He's just an insane hitter. On the flip side, the NL catcher race is Chicago Cubs of Wilson Contreras, who is the runaway pick to be the starter over Travis d'Arnaud of the Atlanta Braves. It's Wilson, and it's Wilson by a mile. It's really not even close. He's been the best, he's probably been the best overall catcher in baseball this year. Kirk's probably been better offensively, but Wilson Contreras overall, I mean, he's been the complete package. I don't know how you couldn't vote for Wilson unless you're an NL Central fan that does not support the Chicago Cubs. So it's Wilson.
Totally agree.
All right. Well, I think this will be a little bit more interesting to talk about the outfield debate. The starters, the potential starters for the outfield in the AL are Aaron Judge, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., George Springer, Giancarlo Stanton, and Mike Trout. So why don't you talk about this a little bit, Jake?
Sure. Yeah, I bolded Aaron Judge on the rundown because he's in already. He is already going to be a starter. I don't know if that is because he was the highest vote getter, or if in the outfield the top vote getter gets in no matter what. Yeah, which I think that's probably the case. But that sounds like the one that makes most sense. But Judge is probably leading both anyway. So Judge is in, and then out of the other ones, it's like you said, Gurriel, Springer, Stanton. Somebody's FaceTiming me right now. Decline. I think the other two are pretty clear. I think it would be Springer and Trout. Stanton has been doing pretty well in terms of hitting for power, but I don't think he's at an all-star level. Springer's been really exciting all year. I think there's better choices to be made at the position than the guys that are presented, but the Blue Jays fans were really out voting. And Trout obviously deserves it no matter what.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Of course, Judge already in. It's from this group of players. I know we had different thoughts when we actually made our own ballot, but from these two picks, it's got to be Springer and Trout. And then on the NL side, also in like Judge on the NL side is Ronald Acuna Jr., of course, the Atlanta Braves. And then he is going to be joined by one of Mookie Betts, Adam Duvall, Starling Marte, and the Pearl Man himself, Jock Peterson. So, I mean, I already know who one of these is going to be for you, but who's your other pick for the NL?
It's Adam Duvall. No, I'm joking. I don't even know how he got on this list in the first place, but I think it's clearly my other two are Mookie Betts and Jock Peterson. Love what Jock's been doing for the Giants. The boy, Starling Marte has been all right, but nobody's better than Mookie Betts among all of these guys, and Ronald's already in. So it's a pretty interesting group there. I think Peterson leads all of them in OPS at 924.
Yeah, I'm right there again with you. It's from this group of players. We had such different ballots than these, and it's crazy because you really see the effect of the fan vote getting players in here that probably have no business being in, like Adam Duvall. And Starling Marte's been fine, but Lourdes Gurriel Jr. probably doesn't really warrant an all-star vote. But yeah, I mean, from this group of players, I think it's Mookie and Jock, just because they've been the two best players. Although I will continue to make a case that my boy Ian Happ was robbed. He should have been in there, and everyone knows it. They have to just go look at his Fangraphs page and be like, okay, well, let's get Ian Happ in the All-Star game, because this is a travesty and a crime, if you ask me. So moving on to the designated hitter position, we've got from the AL side, this one's going to be really tough. It's going to be Yordan Alvarez and the GOAT, Shohei Ohtani. So, I mean, who are you picking from this pairing? I think this is probably the single most difficult debate for me to pick between one of these two.
Well, I'm just relying on the fact that Shohei Ohtani is going to make it in as a pitcher. He's been much better as a pitcher than he was last year, and than he is as a hitter this year. So I think he's in no matter what, and that he deserves it more as a pitcher. So I hope he gets selected as a pitcher because Yordan Alvarez is clearly the best designated hitter in all of baseball this season. So it'd be pretty tough to vote against him right now. He's got a 1,063 OPS, and he's about to be dominating the June month in review.
Yeah. Just a little bit on Yordan. Of course, 24 home runs,
Second in
57
baseball.
RBI. Yeah, 57 RBI. He's hitting 310, and he has a 201 WRC plus.
That's insane.
I don't even think I need to say who it is just based on that. Like you, I think Shohei Ohtani will probably get in as a pitcher. Yes, Yordan. I mean, Yordan, when he's really healthy, like as he's shown, I know he was hurt, like he's been hurt a little bit in the past. When he's healthy, he's the top 5, maybe top 3 hitter in baseball, just in general. I mean, he's just a beast. And on the NL side, got 2 NL East guys. Of course, brother of starting catcher Wilson Contreras is his brother William Contreras of the Atlanta Braves, and his contemporary in this debate is going to be Bryce Harper of the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, this is kind of a tough debate too, for me, just because I kind of want to pick William, just because I think that'd be really cool to have him and Wilson Contreras both be starters in the same All-Star game. But it's hard for me to bet against Bryce. I mean, he's so good.
Yeah, I think the only reason I'm going to vote against Bryce is because he just broke his thumb, so he wouldn't even be able to play in the All-Star game. So it's sort of like a waste of a vote as much as he is deserving of it. I would love to see William and Wilson play together. So I will be voting for William, although Bryce is clearly much better than William Contreras.
Right. If Bryce hasn't gotten hurt, I mean, this is a runaway. It's Bryce by a mile, but it's going to be exciting to see William Contreras get in and actually get to start an All-Star game with his brother. That's just really cool. So on to a rundown of the last little bit of the last week. Cool things happening, of course. Very Cardinals related. Cardinals go back to back to back to back. Nolan Arenado hit a home run. Nolan Gorman hit a home run. Juan Yepes hit a home run. I believe that was his No, it wasn't his first home run. That was another player. And then Dylan Carlson hit a home run. It's the 11th time in MLB history that's ever happened, and it's the first time in the first inning, and it's the first time that the Cardinals have ever done that. So congratulations to the St. Louis Cardinals and those 4 players getting a little slice of baseball history. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Just crazy. They did it in the first inning. Kyle Gibson really just wasn't feeling it, or he just, gave up on that day. He was just like, you know what? I don't want to be here today. I'm just going to give up as many homers as possible and see how quickly the interim manager takes me out. So, yeah, pretty cool. Like you said, 11th in MLB history, first time in St. Louis history, first time in the first inning ever. It was just a really eventful first inning. I wish I had seen that live because that must have been crazy. Just if you were a Cardinals fan, which I know you aren't. Seeing 4 straight home runs is ridiculous.
Yeah. Also in that series, Norman Arenado goes 4 for 4 and hits for the cycle, scores 1 time off the solo home run that he hit, I believe. 3 RBIs, a double, and a triple. And I have a lot to say about this because this should not have been a cycle. This is ridiculous. The single that he got was an error, and it's a very clear error because the third baseman booted it, and then he threw it over the first baseman's head. It's an error. It's not a single. He did not hit for the cycle. This is ridiculous. You can't. I know it's a cool thing, and everyone wants he hit for the cycle. Cool. They lost the game, and they gave that stupid error because it's no Arenado. He's not exactly a burner down the first baseline. It's a very clear unforced error that gives him this single, air quotes. So I'm putting my hater glasses on for a little bit because this definitely was not a legitimate cycle.
Yeah, I did not see that play, so I really don't have as
I'll find it.
Strong. Thanks. Yeah, I don't have that strong opinion on that play itself. I mean, we have seen this recently. I think it was Jared Walsh's cycle I was talking about when it happened, that he needed a triple and he hits one to center field and the center fielder dives for it when it would have been a single. And so obviously it goes all the way to the wall and he gets a triple. So it's just like, I don't know. It seems like people are going out of their way to help players get the cycle. So yeah, I mean, that is the case. This is the fourth of the year. The first one was Christian Yelich, and we had Eduardo Escobar and Jared Walsh in the same game. And then, who did it? Austin Hayes. So this is the fifth. I'm really good at counting. This is the fifth cycle of the season. Pretty interesting. I don't know what the record is for a season, but I'm sure we're getting close to it.
Yeah. I sent you the video of it happening from John Boy, of course. You want to watch that really quick because this absolutely is not a cycle. He hit a hard ground ball to third, and the third baseman kind of bobbled it a little bit, and then he sailed the throw almost out of play.
Bobbled it. Holy moly, he's strong.
It's an error. That is not anywhere close to a single.
That's so weird though that he's playing in Philadelphia and that the away team scorekeeper was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to give that to him, make my own team look bad.
Yeah, no, that's stupid.
It would make sense if he was in St. Louis, but yeah, I don't know. This one's weird.
Yeah, no chance. I don't think that's a single. So shout out to Nolan Arenado on his phantom cycle. Maybe he'll hit for a real one and shut me up. I hope he does. But yeah, because this one's not a real thing. Some news about, of course, Freddie Freeman's old team. We talked about him a million times. Spencer Strider, their stud rookie pitcher, starter, threw a 102.4 mile per hour fastball. It's the fastest strike on record thrown by a starting pitcher since Major League Baseball started tracking velocity in 2008. So this is the single fastest pitch thrown by a starter. Eat your heart out, Jacob deGrom, who's probably going to come back from his stint on the IL and pump 105 past someone.
True.
But yeah, Spencer Strider, excellent mustache, gigantic quads, big fastballs. I mean, he's just the best.
Yeah. I don't know if like the wording in that record is part of like a stipulation. Like it says fastest strike. I'm taking this from Pitching Ninja's tweet about it. It says fastest strike. So I don't know if that means there was a ball that was faster thrown by a starting pitcher, but also, yeah, like this is only by a starting pitcher as well. So like, don't go commenting on our videos and being like, hey bro, you ever seen Aroldis Chapman or Jordan Hicks pitch before? They throw 104 miles per hour. No, this is by a starting pitcher. And I don't know if that means like it had to have been a strike, but either way, pretty crazy. You don't really see records like this broken that often. Strider is insane, and he was really going off in that game. I think he had 11 strikeouts. He's just been really good, and it really all depends on if he's throwing strikes like this record suggests. Like when he doesn't throw strikes, I think it's like the 60% threshold of getting his pitches over for strikes. If he's under that, he like gets blown up for 6 earned runs or whatever. And if he's over that, he's getting the ball over the plate and in the zone. He's just unhittable. So, I mean, he could take down any team when he's throwing his pitches for strikes.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what inning that was, but of course that was against the Reds, and he blew that past Jonathan India. He was just kind of like, what just happened? But yeah, I mean, pretty cool thing to see, especially from such a young pitcher. I mean, he's a rookie. I mean, when he settles in, he's going to be so good for the Braves. He already is insanely good for the Braves. But Pittsburgh Pirates, funnest bad team in baseball, aren't so bad anymore. Had set a home run record in June. They had had 3 separate Pirates have a 3 home run game. Of course, rookie Jack Sawinski, Brian Reynolds, who has had kind of a down season, and Michael Perez. It's the first team in history with a trio of 3 home run games in a single month, and it's the 8th team in history with just the 8th team in history with 3 home run game, or with three home run games in a season, if I can get those words out, which is really crazy that they managed to do that in 1 month. There's only 8 other teams have ever managed to do that in general. Pirates, coming from a rival fan, they're fun, man. They're really fun to watch. Of course, beat up the Cubs, but really cool. Shout out to the Pirates. Those fans they really deserve a good baseball team, because they very rarely ever have one. And at least having one that's bad but fun will fill the void until they're inevitably good. So shout out to the Pirates. That's awesome. That's really fun to watch. Their team is really good, really fun. So awesome for the Pirates.
Definitely. Yeah. So Sawinski did it a couple weeks ago. Brian Reynolds did it at the very beginning of like right after our last podcast. And Michael Perez did it a couple days ago, which his was definitely the most surprising because how many home runs does he have for his career? I'm going to look this up real quick. But he is not a good hitter, nor is he a power hitter. For his career before that game, he had, you want to take a guess how many home runs he had before that game? For his career, he had played like 180 games.
6.
He had 12 dingers prior to that game, and he hit 3 all in one game. So, yeah, he was really feeling it. Got a few fastballs right down the middle. So that one was definitely the most surprising of the 3. It was dope to see Brian Reynolds hit 3 as well because, like you said, he was struggling a lot prior to this season. So it's good to see him turning around. He's up to 15 dingers on the year, and I think his career high is 24. So he's on pace to break that. Looks like he's increasing his power in spite of his average. And then we've talked about Jack Sawinski enough a couple podcasts ago, the 3 home run game where the final one was a walk-off home run. He was the first rookie ever to do that, have 3 home runs in a game, and with the final one being a walk-off. So this, yeah, like you said, it's pretty crazy to do that in 1 month. Obviously, first team ever to do that. So yeah, they're really fun, especially now that O'Neill Cruz is up. I think they're just going to keep getting more fun and better as other prospects get called up. But just wait next year. I mean, they're in 3rd place right now. We'll talk about that in a little. But yeah, they are a good team to watch. Definitely not something where it's like last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago? The freaking hobby bias thing.
That was last year.
Yeah. So as long as they're not last year where you literally just have to like cover your eyes and just like hope that like they don't make fools of themselves. But yeah, this has been a much more exciting season for the Pirates. And now for the main event of the evening.
Of course, we're going to talk about our June month in review. We do this after every month of the season at the end of the month, where we just go over the league leaders and division standings and storylines, of course, of the month. That really important. And just check in and see what's going on in the world of baseball. So we're going to start it off, of course, with the league leaders. So our league leaders in average, we already talked about him for the month. You said he's going to dominate the rundown. Of course, it's Yordan Alvarez. Hit 418 in the month of June. And he's joined by Marlins Garrett Cooper, who hit 378, which is kind of a weird name to see on there. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Yordan so much. He's so good. Hits for a ton of power, of course, 24 home runs, but he hits for a high average. He just hits the baseball in general, and it's almost unfair that the Astros are like, okay, well, here's our core, won the World Series. Well, we lost Correa. Here's King Kong. Yordan Alvarez gonna hit 1 million home runs. He's hit 400 for a month. Yeah, it's just wild.
He's so good.
Yeah, Garrett Cooper. I mean, he's silently a very good hitter for a Marlins team that really needs all the offense it can possibly muster. He's like a combo weird, like first baseman, outfield kind of guy. He's a bigger dude, but he hits for a lot of average and he doesn't really hit for many home runs. He's only got 5 on the season. He's such a weird kind of hitter. Seeing 315 on the season and of course 378 for the month, but Marlins need all the offense they can get. Hopefully they can continue to get this from Garrett Cooper and some more guys.
Yeah. Quick note before I give my thoughts on this, just if people want to check out, they forgot what happened in the previous months. Episode number 13 of Free Baseball was the April month in review, and the May month in review happened in episode number 18. So 13 and 18, if you want to go back and check on these. This is currently episode number 22, but back to the matter at hand. Yordan Alvarez was incredible, and he has been for the whole season. I've said this multiple times in my articles and the podcast, but he's been doing all this because he has reduced his strikeout rate by like 7% from last year, which is crazy. So he's striking out 17% of the time while batting .310 with 24 home runs, which is second in baseball. So he's really insane. He's just like a really good contact hitter, but also like he's freaking 6'5", 225. So he obviously provides a lot of power. He's got the highest hard hit rate in baseball, 60.5%. He barrels the ball 19% of the time, which puts him in the top 5. So pretty much just any sort of like hitting statistic, he is going to be up there. He just impacts the ball harder than anybody in baseball. And Garrett Cooper's pretty surprising name to see on here for sure. he's he's been a really good hitter the past couple of years, batting 283 and 284 with 133 and 134 WRC plus the last 2 years. So he's definitely a guy that can do pretty well. He's striking out less than he ever has, but I think he's definitely being driven up. He's got a 400 BABIP on the season. For his career, that's at 372. I think entering the season his BABIP was 362. He's at 400. So I think just because he hits the ball so hard, hits a lot of line drives, he's going to sport a high BABIP, even if he's not like a fast guy like you would expect, like Tim Anderson. But I think if he's got a BABIP that's that high for like 887 plate appearances, he's got a pretty high threshold there. I think it's probably going to settle in around 350, 340 for his career, but 400 is definitely a little bit high. He's going to come down, but I really love what he's been doing. I had him on my fantasy team for a while, had to cut him in because of a roster crunch, but he hits the ball pretty hard. And like you said, he just hits too many ground balls. He doesn't really get to his power really enough. He hits 45% ground balls and only 26% fly balls. So I think if he were to go the Vladdy route of hitting more fly balls, he'd tap into his power because he is also 6'5", 235. So basically same size as Jordan, just doesn't get the ball in the air. But yeah, dope that he batted 378 for a whole month. That's sick.
Yeah. So moving on to the league leaders in the hits category, we talked about average. In the AL, it is the Cleveland Guardians. Ahmed Rosario led all of baseball with 41 hits in the month of June. He is followed very closely behind in the NL by former NL East division mate Dansby Swanson, who we talked about already as just being incredible, who had 37 hits. Ahmed Rosario, I mean, he was one of the pieces in the Lindor trade that everyone was just kind of like, oh, he's a body, like he's a throw-in. He's like a former Mets top prospect. He's kind of come into his own with the Guardians, and he's not like a really like a super standout player, but he's consistently getting hits. He's consistently getting on base. He plays solid defense. He's still got the speed, of course. He's been a pretty solid piece for the Guardians to have in their potential surprise conquest of the AL Central.
Yeah, he's been really interesting. He made my top performers for June. Obviously, getting this many hits, it's going to get you in there. I wrote that he is sporting the lowest strikeout rate of his career at 14.5%. He's got the highest max exit velocity of his career at 115.8 miles per hour, which is showing that not only is he seeing the ball better, like controlling the strike zone better, but he's also hitting the ball harder than he ever has, which sort of portends a increase in his power production, which has not been the case so far. He's got a 103 WRC plus on the season. Might have changed since I wrote that article. 104 now. But in that month, he had a 154 WRC plus in June. So it's showing that, like he's not really an elite hitter, but maybe he's getting there. And if he can just get the ball in the air a little bit more, he'll add to his 3 home runs. He's got a career high of 15, but he's also like swipes a lot of bases. He's definitely a fun player. He just, sort of sucks in the outfield. They like have had to move him back into the infield at shortstop because I don't know if you've ever watched him play outfield. He'll literally just miss routine. Yeah, he'll miss routine fly balls that I would have caught, as like a 12-year-old. So I'm just like, what? How are you a major league player that can't catch a fly ball? But nonetheless, he and Dansby Swanson are the league leaders in hits. And Dansby, obviously, we've spoken about him enough. He's been absolutely insane. And I think it's all due to a 389 BABIP that is definitely driving up a lot of his production, because the only increases you can see across the board, I guess he's hitting the ball harder. He's got a higher hard hit rate. He's got a higher barrel percentage. So he's been impacting the ball better than ever, but he's definitely being helped out by a BABIP. I think he's going to settle in around 280, which would still be a career high for him. So yeah, pretty dope for both of them. I think Rosario is going to have a huge second half.
Yeah, I hope he does. I hope the Guardians win the AL Central. I think that'd be really interesting because I know everyone was down on them because they didn't add anything really big in the offseason, except for like the Ramirez extension. And they're like, okay, we'll show you and we'll win the AL Central. So I hope they do. And I hope Ahmed Rosario hits 1 million hits in the second half for them. Moving on to runs. So we're going to be kind of similar to the category directly below it, but AL run leader is AL MVP frontrunner Aaron Judge, top vote getter in the outfield for the AL as well. Then on the NL side, man, he just loves June. Kyle Schwarber. So 27 runs for Kyle Schwarber. I have an interesting stat about him. I'm actually going to save until the next category, which he'll headline. But Kyle Schwarber led all of baseball in runs in June, 27. I mean, I love Kyle Schwarber. Obviously, you can look at my hat and tell. But yeah, I mean, he just pounds the ball. He's a different animal in June. It's crazy. And that's a shame Isaiah isn't here to talk up his boy Aaron Judge, but we've already talked him up enough.
Yeah, why don't you read off the next category as well, so we can just sort of wrap these two names up.
Okay. So also the league leaders in home runs, of course, in June. In the AL is Aaron Judge with 11. Kyle Schwarber also 12 home runs in the month of June. And my interesting stat about Kyle Schwarber that I thought was pretty interesting, his career home run ratio in June is he actually has he hits a home run every 9.93 at bats. That's number one in modern baseball history. Who do you think follows him in second, Jake?
Barry Bonds.
Babe Ruth.
Whoa.
So
that's insane.
And it's not that close. And Babe's was 10.63 at bats per home run. So he's almost gotten him beat by an entire at bat. Yeah, I mean, he hit 12 home runs. Yeah. He did it last year too. I mean, he was wild for the
16. He hit 16 last year.
That's just stupid.
He's insane. He was the top. He was the cover boy, the top fantasy baseball performer in June for my article. And I pretty much just wrote, like if he could legally change his birthday, like you can change your name, he would move it to June. He's born in March, but I'm sure he would be like, bro, June is my month of celebration. He just, I don't know if he sees the ball better, if he just like gets into a groove. But yeah, I mean, 16 homers last year and then 12 homers this year. That's 28 homers in 2 months combined. That's just ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, he's really good. Obviously led the league in runs. I think he bats lead off for the Phillies. So yeah, I don't know, he's something else in June. For the season now, he's up to 23 home runs, which is I think that's the most in the National League, ahead of Pete Alonso. He's got only a 127 WRC plus, which is what was that?
23, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so that's a 127 WRC plus for the year, which is lower than it was last year because he's batting 215 as a result of a 234 BABIP, which is a lot lower than the 306 he had last year. I know I point out BABIP a lot, but that's a good indication of good or bad luck. But he's barely in the ball 21.1% of the time, which is like top 3 in baseball. Just literally insane. When he makes contact, it is going to go a long way. And obviously there's not more you can say about Judge. He was the only guy to have made all 3 of my monthly top performers articles so far this year. The only hitter to make all 3 of them. So he's up to 29 homers on the year. He's on pace for almost 60. He's on pace for like 58 home runs right now, 59, 173 WRC plus, which is 1 point lower somehow than his 2017 WRC plus, which you wouldn't guess that. But yeah, he's been really good. And I noted in that same article about how he is being more aggressive at the plate. He's like striking out more, or he's not striking out more. He's walking less. He's reaching more often. He's making, I think it was more, let me see. He is swinging more often than ever, reaching out of the zone at a career high rate, and that results in the lowest full season walk rate of his career. But that like is super weird because it's culminated in the best contact rate of his career and his lowest swinging strike rate. So he's making more contact than ever, but he's reaching more often than ever, but also he's hitting homers at a incredible pace. So I have no idea what he's doing. If it's just like he's trying, he sees like the records are in sight, so he's just like trying to be as aggressive as ever and like hit home runs, or if this is like a conscious approach change that he's like, you know what, I got to be more aggressive. Like the umpires call these balls like at my ankles and I can hit pretty much anything for a home run. So I just got to like swing at everything. But yeah, he's been the premier home run hitter by far.
Of course, whatever he's doing is obviously working.
Yes.
And like you said, the new approach for new man, who we'll talk about again, of course, as the runs batted in leader in all of baseball. Jordan Alvarez did as well. 28 RBI in the month of June for Jordan. Followed closely by Mr. June, Kyle Schwarber, 27. Again, he just loves that number. 27 runs, 27 RBI. Of course, the two combined. If he just hit one home run less, he would have had 27 home runs over the 2 Junes from the last 2 years. But yeah, both these guys just so good. Jordan, of course, in a really good lineup, of course. But Kyle Schwarber, I'm kind of surprised by that 27 RBIs because you said, of course, he hits leadoff for the Phillies, which 27 RBIs.
A lot of dingers.
Yeah, he's hitting a million dingers. So shout out to those two guys, big power guys. We love them. Not much else to say, so I guess we can move on to stolen bases. Of course, the AL stolen base leader, Tampa Bay Rays, Randy Arozarena. Some MF named Randy, according to Foolish Baseball. He likes stealing a lot of bases. Got 10 steals in the month of June. And then the NL leader is base thief John Birdie. 18 steals in June. That's just awesome. I love steals. Of course, he plays for the Miami Marlins. That's just such a strange player. But, yeah, he's had a really crazy season, stealing 1 million bags. John Birdie, I mean, shout out to him for bringing the steal back. We love it. 25 on the year now.
Just absolutely insane. My mind was blown when I was writing him up for the June monthly performance article. He didn't hit a single home run, but he still was the number 3 fantasy baseball performer because he stole so many bases. Listen to this. I'm not sure if you read the article, so like you might be hearing this for the second time, but here we go. He was just like, it was literally like pretty much unfair what John Birdie was doing. So the player with the second most swipes in baseball was Randy at 10, and he had 3 more than the third place finisher. So like by itself, Randy was like killing it in the stolen base department. Both of these guys are from Florida, so the floor must have been hot because they were running. Nonetheless, so Randy, like by himself, that's impressive. 3 more steals than anybody else in baseball, not named John Birdie, because Birdie had 8 more steals than Randy, giving him way more than Randy, and then also more than double the amount of anybody not named Randy, and triple the amount of everybody except for 3 players in baseball. So it was Randy and then 2 guys with 7, and then everybody else had 6 or fewer. So John Birdie had 3 times more steals than anybody in baseball except for Randy and 2 other guys, which is that's insane. He was not caught for like 21 consecutive steals, which set a Marlins franchise record. He was just stealing everything. He batted .297 for the month. Like I said, no home runs, so he wasn't premiering any power. He's been pretty lucky with his BABIP, obviously, as always, but it's pretty close to his career rate. So I had written him up for a couple weekly articles, and I wrote that, like, pitchers just got to attack him. He doesn't hit the ball hard. Like, you just got to force him to put the ball in play because he will walk. He walks 12% of the time, which is really good. So if he's just going to be patient, take his walks, get on first and steal second and third, most likely, then you just got to attack him, throw the ball in the zone and like force him to hit it because he doesn't hit the ball with authority. So I think that's the only way they're going to stop him from stealing bases, because you're not going to catch him when he's stealing bases. So yeah, he's absolutely insane, literally mind blowing what he's been doing on the bases, and not to take anything away from Randy.
Of course. We should have renamed this part in the rundown, Florida Man Steals Bag. But you can read all of these monthly check-in articles, of course, monthly top performers for fantasy on the athleteshub.com. .org. Sorry, .org. I always forget that. .org. I'm away from them. .org. And check out all of Jake's stuff there. He does it every month, every week too. If you play fantasy baseball, it's like a godsend. You just need it.
Even if you don't play fantasy basebal, there's still fun articles to read. It's not like I'm not just being like, all right, bro, like pick this guy up in your 15-team AL only OPS centric league. It's like, I'm just talking about, the stats that they put up. So if you like stats, if you like baseball, those are fun articles to read no matter what. Yeah.
I read them. I'm not a fantasy guy, but I read every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I still love hearing that John Birdie stat, which is just crazy. And he only had 25 steals on the year. He had 18 of them in June. And his previous high for a season was 17. And then last year he only had 8. So he had 10 more than his entire season last year. which is just wild. I hope he steals a million more. I would love to see that. Like you said, pitchers just need to attack him. I hope they don't. I hope they keep nibbling. I hope he keeps walking. I hope he keeps getting 40 steals. I hope he gets to like 50 steals this year and just goes off, because it's part of the game that's kind of like just evaporated, really, or at least declined in a big way. And seeing him and Randy kind of bring it back a little bit, would love that. So moving on to the OPS leaders in the AL, it's Yordan. It's Yordan. It's always going to be Yordan. It feels like he's inevitable, and it's going to be Yordan for the rest of the time right now. He had a 1.346 OPS in the month of June. In the NL, Juan Soto's contemporary, Josh Bell, had a 1.142 OPS. Had a quietly really good month for the Nationals, and has been pretty good for them after his pretty miserable start with them last season, where he's kind of like, well, why did they even bother trading for this guy? And then he's just turned into a really good player and a solid piece for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, talked about Yordan enough. Josh Bell, deserves all the plaudits.
Yeah. A quick note on that: Yordan 1346 OPS. That's 204 points higher than anybody else in baseball with at least 50 plate appearances in June, which is a little bit mind blowing. Josh Bell was that second place guy. Bell's been really good this year. He's obviously been getting lucky. He's batting 318, which is really good. Career high 151 WRC plus, but it's definitely a result of him just striking out less than ever. He was already a guy who didn't strike out a lot. If you're under 20%, that's really solid. He was at 18.8 for his career entering the season, and now he's at 13.2%. So he dropped off 5 percentage points, 5.5 from his career rate entering the season. And so, that's led to him making more contact. He wasn't really showing as much power as he has in the past. Remember, he hit 37 home runs for the Pirates in 2019. And he hit 27 last year. Right now, he's at 12, putting him on pace for like 25. So still pretty much in line with last year. His ISO is lower than it has been for his entire career at 195 right now. His career was 207. So he was really not hitting for as much power, but he started adding it this month. He hit I think 4 home runs, which is pretty solid. I think he did most of the damage in like a 3 or 4 game span where he hit 3 home runs. But nonetheless, he's been really interesting this year, and his Statcast metrics are sort of all over the place, where it's like his slugging and his X slug are right in line with each other, and so is his average and X batting average. And same with his WOBA and expected WOBA, but he's got like the lowest barrel rate and lowest hard hit rate of his career. He's got the lowest max exit velocity. I don't really know what he's doing there to change his approach, but it seems to be working. And I think he's going to be a free agent. Oh, he had just signed as a free agent with the Nationals. So I think he's a free agent next year. So we'll see what he can do for the whatever team he signs with after this year. He's definitely setting himself up for a solid payday.
Yeah, he's just on the 1-year contract with the Nationals. Probably going to be a big piece that they trade at the deadline, I'd have to imagine. He's on a really affordable contract too for them to try to move. It's just 1 year, $10 million. So trying to move him to a contender that needs help there, probably really a no-brainer. But moving on, the leaders in F4 in the AL, it's Yordan. He's inevitable. It's Yordan. 2.1 F4 in the AL, and in the NL, it's Enter the Crone Zone. Jake Cronenworth, 1.8 F4 in the month of June, which comprises the lion's share of his 2.3 WAR on the season. He's had a really solid month too for the Padres, who've kind of bounced back a little bit. Of course, still waiting on Tatis to come back, but yeah, Cronenworth. Pretty decent month for Mr. Jake, the namesake of our my co-host. So I'll let you talk about Jake Cronenworth. You can enter the Crone Zone. Talk about.
Sure. Yeah, he was really struggling. April wasn't a struggle, but he had a 57 WRC plus in May, so things really weren't going well. But he's cut back on the strikeouts. Batted 315 in June. He had a 171 WRC plus. He really wasn't contributing in the home run or stolen base category, so he didn't make my article. I think he had just 4 home runs and 1 stolen base, but he batted 315 for the month. Like I said, he's got the worst WRC plus for his career in the season, so he's going to need to continue turning it around like he has. But I think he hit 12 doubles in the month, which is pretty crazy. As many home runs as Kyle Schwarber hit. So he's been showing off his power in the two baggers. So that's been pretty solid for Cronenworth. I was really surprised to see him lead the National League in F4 in June.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to read that on the rundown as well. But good for Jake Cronenworth. Moving on to the pitching side of things. A lot of guys tied for the most wins in the AL with 4, and all of them are going to be Justin Verlander, Houston Astros, of course, Alek Manoah, Shohei Ohtani, Nick Pivetta, Ross Stripling, Jameson Taillon, Logan Gilbert, Diego Castillo, and Tyler Wells all have 4 wins in the month of June. And in the NL, just Kyle Wright. He's got 5. So 5 wins for Kyle Wright with that pretty crazy Braves rotation. And a lot of guys getting wins. Wins, of course, aren't really like a super pitcher success indicative stat. But 4 wins in a month, pretty good. 5 wins in a month, really good. So good for those guys.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one to note from the AL, like we did last month in the NL, there were a bunch of guys with 4 wins, I think, and one of them was a reliever. That is the case here, Diego Castillo of the Seattle Mariners, not the rookie on the Pirates. Diego Castillo is a relief pitcher. He made one of my weekly articles. I nicknamed him the decision maker because he was just getting a lot of wins, getting a lot of saves. He was making a lot of decisions for the Mariners, and he, after a really terrible, horrible start to the season, he turned it around this last month. He had like a whip below 1 and a really low, like 1 something ERA. So he's been really turning around after he struggled to start the season. He's been on my fantasy teams for a while. I suggested him as a pickup in pretty much all leagues, and that I've had him pretty much league wide on all my teams since I suggested that, more for like 12 team and 15 teamers. But yeah, also Tyler Wells, pretty interesting. The Orioles aren't really like a crazy team, and Tyler Wells hasn't been too amazing, but he is a pretty solid innings eater. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys, but he's been getting the job done. And all those other guys are pretty clear, some of the best pitchers on their team. Ross Stripling, maybe not, but he's been getting pretty lucky. And Kyle Wright, man that I traded for at the beginning of the month, got me 5 wins, pretty solid. Should have had a win last night. His game got rained out after 4 innings. Not rained out, but delay, and they wouldn't let him go back out there. I was pretty pissed. He had a 6-run lead. He hadn't allowed to run, and just needed 1 more inning to get that win, get me 5 more points. So that was pretty disappointing. But yeah, he's got a 2.91 ERA on the season. He's 9-4, 96 innings pitched. He's got a 25% strikeout rate. So really solid breakout for Kyle Wright. That's continued through all 3 months of the season. And yeah, there's too many guys to talk about on the AL side to read off stats for each and every one of them.
Yeah, Diego Castillo on the season has 6 wins and 4 saves, which is very, very fun. If you ever want to watch Diego Castillo, I think there's very funnily a YouTube channel that posts literally every single Diego Castillo outing that he has all season.
Really?
Yeah,
never seen that.
Diego Castillo Mariners highlights, his most recent videos from 2 days ago, and it's in all
That's
caps.
funny.
Big Daddy Diego puts Oakland to bed. So
That's funny.
Yeah, so if you ever want to watch Diego Castillo highlights, that guy has all of them on YouTube. Like I said, he's got 4 saves on the season. That pales in comparison to the AL saves leader of the month, the Cleveland Guardians, Emmanuel Clase, pumps that cajillion mile per hour cutter past everybody. 11 saves on the month, just shutting it down. Of course, he was a big piece trade for them a couple seasons ago. Got the steroid suspension, which sucks. But then he comes in, he is nails, man. He just throws gas, and every Guardians pitcher, it just seems like they keep pumping him out, and they're a pitching factory. I joke about the Giants cheating factory all the time. I think the Guardians have a cheating factory, but only for pitchers. So Clase really, really just throwing it out there. And then aging like a fine wine on the NL side, Kenley Jansen of the Atlanta Braves has 8 saves on the month. I believe that pushed him up in the all-time saves leaderboard as well over the month. We talked about that a couple pods ago, where I think he was
Papelbon.
1. Yeah, well, Papelbon was 1 ahead of Kenley Jansen.
No, they were tied.
They were tied. That's right. I think he beat him that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're Relievers Matter podcast. Isaiah's not here to flash
the graphic.
Yeah. Flash the graphic. Relievers Matter. So 8 saves and 11 saves for Clase and Jansen, respectively.
Yeah, Class A was really incredible. He is the only reliever to make my monthly top performers article outright. I do a reliever of the month section just so that the relievers can get their due. And Class A didn't even need that. He was the 8th best pitcher in baseball in terms of fantasy value. He did not allow a run all month across 15 innings.
That's wild.
The 11 saves were 3 more than anybody else. He had a .47 whip, which was the best among pitchers with at least 15 innings. And 16 strikeouts in 15 innings. He didn't walk a single batter on the season. He's up to 1.31 ERA, which is crazy. And alongside a 0.82 whip. He doesn't strike out guys like you would expect somebody with a 100-mile-per-hour cutter, but he is unstoppable this year, even better than last year. Oh, wow. He had a 1.29 ERA last year. So across the last 2 seasons, he's got a 1.30 ERA in 104 innings pitched. That is elite. That's pretty crazy. And then Jansen, who unfortunately is on the IL with heart problems, which he has dealt with throughout his career. He's going to be okay. He's dealt with this before and was able to pitch while he was on the IL and came back just as strong. So I think he'll be okay. But he's been really good in Atlanta this season. Like there was 3 years ago, it seemed like Jansen's career was coming to a close. He just his velo was falling off. His effectiveness was declining, but now he's just right back on top of being one of the best relievers in all of baseball.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it for Kenley. I know you're glad to see him out of Los Angeles.
Yes.
But Kenley Jansen, congratulations on moving up in the career saves leaderboard past Jonathan Papelbon. And on to the innings pitched leaders. For the AL, it's Boston Red Sox, Nick Pivetta with 40 on the dot. And in the NL, leading all of baseball, podcast favorite, Sandy Alcantara, workhorse, 47 2/3 inning pitched in the month of June. He was in the hot weeks, I think twice. Yeah. So Sandy, I mean, we love Sandy here at the podcast. He's long been Jake's dark horse Cy Young contender. I've bought in. I'm on the Sandy for Cy Young train. So we're gonna hope Sandy just keeps pumping it past everybody. He's been really good, and he just eats innings for the Marlins. So do you want to gush over Sandy more or
yes?
Of course. Well, I'll hand it over to you, man. You go right ahead.
Of course I do. Sandy's got an ERA below 2. He's not striking out batters like he was last year, which made him, my NL Cy Young Award favorite because he had increased his strikeout rate in the second half. He's not doing that this year, but what he is doing is not letting the manager take the ball from him no matter what. He will be in the 8th inning with 110 pitches, and he's like, no way. I'm not letting anybody blow this lead for me. After last year, where he had a 9-15 record despite a 3.19 ERA across 200 innings, he's now 8-3. So he's just no, you are not giving the bullpen any opportunity to blow my wins. And he's been absolutely crazy. I love what Sandy does. I wish I had him in more of my fantasy leagues. He's one of my favorite pitchers, just throws 100 miles per hour sinkers and fastballs and a crazy changeup and a really solid slider. But he's one of my favorite pitchers. He's a guy who seems to be out of his time, where it's in this day and age of pitchers going 5 innings at maximum, a lot of the time, Sandy just consistently throws complete games and stuff. I think he's got 2 this year already, and he's the only pitcher in baseball, I think, with more than 1 for sure. It gives him 3 across the last 2 years. So he's at 115 innings pitch. He's on pace for 230. That would be insane. We haven't seen that in a while. And then Nick Pivetta just been getting pretty lucky, I think, in terms of a lot of stuff. What he does best, though, is he puts his low 90s fastball up at the top of the zone, and it has a lot more rise than most other fastballs. And then in a complete opposite turn, he throws a curveball that has some of the largest amount of drop in baseball. So if you're throwing the fastball up that doesn't drop at all, and then you throw a curveball that drops some of the most in the league, then that's a pretty good combination. I don't know if you've ever seen this curveball. It's crazy. I will sometimes tune into a game and just see him throw a curveball, and I'm just how is he not better than he is? But I think it's because he just he walks a lot of guys. He doesn't locate his pitches that well, and he's been getting pretty lucky in the home run department this year. So I think things will turn around for the worse for him. He's got a 4.06 xFIP to go with his 3.23 ERA, but nonetheless, he was really, really good in the month of June. I think he threw a complete game himself, but he he was really good. He's just not going to be this good for the rest of the season.
Of course, Nick Pivetta, like you said, I mean, you're surprised he's not as good as it seems like he should be. To start the season, he was pretty miserable. Meaning 19, his first month of the season, he went 19 and a third, had an 8.27 ERA, which is disgusting. 15 earned runs, 16 strikeouts. So one more strikeout than he's given up runs. Gave up 4 home runs, almost a 300 average, 297 and a 1.96 WHIP. And over the next 2 months, so May and June, he has 78 and a third innings pitched. He's pitched to a 2.18 ERA, 19 earned over 2 months. So he had 15 in the first month, 75 strikeouts, giving up 6 home runs. He has a 196 average and a sub 1 WHIP at 0.94. I mean, he's figured something out, and it's very clearly working for him. And it's good for the Red Sox because their rotation really, really needs the help. And he's kind of stepped up. I know I made the dark horse pick of Nathan Eovaldi being kind of a Cy Young contender. Barring the first month of Nick Pivetta's season, I mean, you can make an argument he probably deserves to be in the AL Cy Young contention right now. But yeah, Pivetta, 40 innings pitched. Hopefully he can continue that for the Red Sox. It's good to see kind of like an unsung guy. I know he's kind of floated around, went to the Phillies and then back to the Red Sox. But yeah, so it's good to see guys like that really get their due and really succeed in the league when they're not like the big names that you really expect. So shout out to Nick Pivetta. Before we move on to the ERA leaders, feels like we've talked about this guy a lot too on the pod. An AL ERA leader for the month is Dylan Cease of the Chicago White Sox with a sub 1 ERA, 0.33. He's just so good. And then the NL ERA leader, pretty unsung, really good pitcher this year for the Dodgers. I know a lot of people probably are talking about it, but it's not a name that you really would expect to hear starting the season. It's Tony Gonsolin. Tony Gonsolin had a 1.24 ERA in the month of June. I mean, what else is there to say about Dylan Cease? I mean, he's been so consistent this year, which is really fun to actually go back and look at his previous season because all of his peripheral numbers really fall in line with what his ERA looks like. And he's got a 2.51 ERA on the year, but he's got a 2.71 xERA, 2.73 FIP, and a 2.95 xFIP. So they're all kind of falling in line relatively close to one another, especially compared to the previous season where he had a 3.91 ERA, 3.65 xERA, 3.41 FIP, and a 3.72 xFIP. He's already just about 2 WAR off of what he was worth last year as well. Cease, when he's really in command of what he's got in his pitch arsenal, he's as close to as unhittable as a starting pitcher can get in the league. Crazy breaking balls. There's high, mid to high 90s fastball. He's so excellent for the Chicago White Sox. And then I know you don't want to talk about Tony Gonsolin, so maybe we'll skip that. But what are your thoughts on these two guys?
Yeah, well, you said Cease has been consistent. I don't think that is the case at all. He had a 3.27 ERA in April, and then he had a 3.98 ERA in May, and then now a 0.33 ERA in June. So it's really been up and down throughout the whole season. And the weirdest part is he's a guy very similar to Strider, that he just needs to throw his pitches for strikes, and that usually evades him a lot. He had 10 walks in that first month, 13 in the second month, and then he had a season high 14 walks in June with his lowest ERA. So I don't know, that doesn't really make sense. He didn't strike out as many batters as he did last year, but he still had a lower average. I think he was getting pretty lucky in terms of balls in play and left on base this month. That's why his ERA was so low, but he didn't even throw as many innings as Gonsolin, giving Gonsolin the lowest ERA among pitchers with at least 29 innings pitched, which is how many Gonsolin threw. Gonsolin's been pretty crazy. He's been really lucky in his own right. I think he's got the largest difference between his xFIP and his ERA. It's 2 runs or something, which is pretty crazy. I think he's got a 1.54 on the season, and his xFIP's 3.75 or something like that. So, it's definitely going to turn around, but he's been, riding his splitters, riding his slider. He doesn't throw super hard, but he's a guy who hasn't thrown a lot of innings for the Dodgers, and so his career ERA is in the 2s. He's really good, and I think both of these guys are very good, but they won't keep up sub 1.5 ERAs from the both of them for the rest of the season. And I think people may be misled by how successful they were in run prevention this month.
All right, moving on to hit prevention this time, as well as walks. So the whip leaders of the month. In the NL side, Tony Gonsolin, like you said, just guys aren't really hitting him. And on the AL side, guys never really hit Shane McClanahan, but 0.7 0.7 whip, for Shane McClanahan, and a 0.72 whip for Tony Gonsolin in the month of June. McClanahan, one of the game's premier strikeout starters. And that really shows. I mean, when he's super in command, he's really, really untouchable. He always racks up huge strikeout numbers. And then Tony Gonsolin, like you said, probably won't continue this pace. His xFIP is 3.77 and his ERA is 1.54 for the year. So yeah, like literally over over 2 runs more. Yeah, that won't continue, but still having a good season regardless. And McClanahan is probably like one of the favorites to win the AL Cy Young. Like he really should be, but yeah, young guy throws pretty good game. I'd say Shane McClanahan's pretty good at baseball. What would you say?
I say that he is like clearly the most dominant pitcher in baseball this year, just in terms of strikeouts, hit on base prevention, run prevention. Like Sandy eats a lot more innings than Shane does, but McClanahan is just so good. He here's where he ranked in the month of June. He had the lowest whip in the majors, obviously, a 0.70. He had the lowest batting average against at 161 and the best strikeout to walk percentage at 31.1%. He tied for the fewest walks and hits allowed separately had the fewest hits and fewest walks allowed tied. He finished second in ERA in the month, and he punched out the 4th most batters. He struck out the 4th most batters in all of baseball. That is an ace in my book. And he's just so good. He doesn't allow runs. He strikes out a ton of batters, and it's all a result of him using his fastball less. He's got a really good fastball, like 96 plus miles per hour, which you don't ever really see from left-handed pitchers, let alone left-handed starters. So that puts him, I think he has the highest average fastball velocity from a left-handed starter. And he has been using that less, and that seems confusing, but it sort of got hit a lot last year. But the reason he's been doing that is because he has so many off-speed pitches that are really good. He's got a curveball, slider, and a changeup, and all of them are elite. So he's been using those about as much time or more than he's been using his fastball, 70% combined, where his fastball comes in around like 30% of the time. So that really keeps hitters off balance. And like, because he has so many options, he's got any amount of weapons he wants to attack hitters. And now that they have to guess on that fastball rather than seeing it around like half of the time, now that they don't know when it's coming and it comes in 96 to 100 miles per hour, then, you're always just like, oh shoot, like here comes a nasty slider. Here comes a changeup with like 15 inches of run. And then, oh man, 96 miles per hour past me. So he's just unstoppable, really.
Yeah. He's been nails for the Rays, and that's probably going to continue deep into the future. Still just 25 years old for Shane McClanahan. Onto the strikeouts leaders for the month of June. We already talked about him. AL strikeout leader is Dylan Cease with 45, and he's tied with the NL's strikeout leader, Charlie Martin, also with 45 for the month. Dylan Cease, huge strikeout pitcher. Charlie Martin, good at baseball. We talked about him before. Still good at baseball, turns out. Nothing changed, which who knew? But yeah, 45 strikeouts for those two over the month of June.
Yeah, Cease was, we talked about Cease. I meant Morton. He really struggled to start the season, and people love to blame his age for that, I think, especially after we saw him last year do the same thing where he struggled for like the first 2 months, and it seemed like, oh man, this guy's going to retire after this year because he sort of sucks now. But no, that's not the case. He really started to turn things around. It all started on the 11th of June. The game before his first start of June, he struck out 8 batters in Colorado, but he gave up 4 runs. He gave up 4 runs in the next start, but he struck out 12 batters, and that came with a 41.2% CSW and 24 whiffs. So if that doesn't tell you things are about to turn around, then you're not too great at analyzing pitchers, because his next start was a 7-inning shutout where he got 21 more whiffs and struck out 9 batters. He struck out 11 batters in the next start. He had his worst start of the month with only 5 strikeouts and 4 walks. And that was against the Phillies, which is a tough offense. And then he even added another start, which doesn't count for this month, where he just struck out 10 batters a couple days ago and only allowed 2 base runners in a shutout of the Reds in Cincinnati. So he's been just absolutely killing it. His curveball is back to being a really good pitch, as it always has. He throws that his most often out of all his pitches. It's got the 6th highest usage of a curveball according to Pitcher List, with a 17.8% swinging strike rate, and he throws I think a mid-90s four-seamer, 95 miles per hour on average, and he's getting that ERA south of 4. Finally, it's 4.35, but he's getting there, and love to see Charlie Morton turn it around after he was a guy that I was sort of touting as somebody who was going, sort of too late in fantasy baseball drafts for a guy that has been as good as he has been the last couple of years.
Of course, another guy that is failing to be beat by Father Time is, of course, Justin Verlander of the Houston Astros, who led the AL for pitcher FWAR with 1.2, and he is joined by the 2 NL contemporaries, both tied with 1.5 FWAR this time. Aaron Nola of the Philadelphia Phillies and Carlos Rodon, a guy we've mercilessly hated on in the past and now look very stupid for doing so, with 1.5 FWAR in the month of June. Verlander, we all know about him. He's been really good. Of course, didn't really contribute anything last year. Of course, just the 6 innings, and then kind of had to deal with a lot of injury issues. And now 39 strikeout percentage is way down, but he's still getting results. 2.03 ERA, 3.38 FIP, and a 3.03 xERA. He's got 2.3 FWAR on the season, and 1.2 of it came in the month of June. He's just had a really solid month. Houston Astros in general had a really solid month. They were really tough to beat. He was part of that.
Yes. Verlander's really good. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. He just keeps adding to that resume. I think he's top 3 in innings pitched ERA and WHIP among qualifiers, which that's really good. It's going to be him versus McClanahan, I think, for the Cy Young. I think Verlander's ERA is obviously going to fall down as you read that those expected ERA numbers. But nonetheless, he's been really good. He doesn't strike out batters like he used to. His stuff isn't as good, but he's been sort of offsetting that by getting the walks down. And then we have Rodon, who's been crazy in the National League, and Nola, who is really good as well. Nola had the 2nd most innings, I think, and the 2nd most strikeouts, at least in the National League. So he was doing, sort of everything that you could possibly ask for from a pitcher. And he's sort of screwed by his terrible defense a lot of the time. So it's disappointing to see Nola not be as good as he can be, but that's why he's got a 1.5 FWAR, because his FIP is so much lower than his ERA that, he's going to be bumped up by Fangraphs WAR. And then Rodon, who really struggled in May after a really good April. He's come back strong and was really good in June. 1.5 FWAR. That's pretty dang good. He hasn't been as good as he was last year, but the Giants have been doing a good job of keeping him healthy. Hopefully he can keep this up through the rest of the season and maybe into the playoffs possibly. But yeah, I love what all 3 of these pitchers have been doing. It's fun to see, stars be good. But let's hit those players of the month. I'll just read them off real quick, and then we can talk about the standings before we shut down the podcast with the closer. So the hitters of the month, easy guesses: Yordan Alvarez, the F4 leader, and Kyle Schwarber, the home run leader. And among pitchers, we had Dylan Cease, who had the lowest ERA, 0.33, and the most strikeouts. And then you have Sandy Alcantara, who was just the premier innings eater in the league. And rookies, Julio Rodriguez, who we talked about as the AL player of the week, and just one of the most fun guys to watch. He's just been killing it, especially as a rookie. And then you have Michael Harris II, who made his debut earlier in the month and was just unstoppable. I think he was batting like 350. He had like 4 homers and 4 steals. He's got a power speed, and he's got probably one of the best gloves in all of baseball in center field. So that's been really fun to watch. The Braves are lucky to have another outfielder out there in Atlanta to pair with Ronald Acuna Jr. to give them just a really elite outfielder. And then you have the relievers. You got Emmanuel Clase, who we mentioned, most saves in baseball, didn't allow a run. And then Edwin Diaz, who's been really good this year. I think he's got the highest strikeout rate in the major leagues, and that's somewhere north of 40%, which is absolutely crazy. He's been really good as a closer, been shut down much better than he has been in any other year in New York. He's looking a lot like he did when he saved over 50 games for the Mariners. And go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I'm really happy for Edwin Diaz finally kind of succeeding with the Mets because I'm really tired of people being like, "Ooh, haha, Ed lose Diaz." That's the lamest thing you could possibly call him.
That is a good nickname though.
It's a good nickname, but it really doesn't fit. I mean, like this,
not
especially
anymore at least.
not this season. So on that note, I think it's a good time to do a little standings check-in. We always do this at the end of the month to check where the divisions are looking at. Look at the division leaders in the division and conference leaders in league. Excuse me, league leaders in wins, and then teams with the worst records, so we can point and laugh at the bad team. So
no.
One of these will be belonging to Jake Crumpler, and I was very perilously close to having my team be here. But I think we'll kick it off with a little check-in with the American League. And overall, top to bottom, the Yankees have the best record in baseball still. Mets kind of struggling a little bit, but the Yankees still right there, 58-22 record. Shame Isaiah wasn't here to talk about it and give us a bunch of crap about how good the Yankees have been when we kind of really were not high in them to start the season. Just really good. A couple of division leaders, the Twins also leading the AL Central 46-37. And then in the AL West, it's kind of a one-horse race. The Houston Astros are 52-27. The Los Angeles Angels are in the mud. Maybe we'll point and laugh at them a little bit later, but what are your thoughts here, Jake? How's the AL shaping up compared to how you thought it would be starting the month?
It's starting the month. I don't think much has changed other than like the Red Sox climbing from like fourth place to second place in the AL East, which seems to be the toughest division in all of baseball. That started out as the NL West when all teams were above 500, but now the AL East, all five teams are doing really well. 4 teams in that league in that division are above 500, and the Orioles actually don't have a bad record for once. They're at 37-44. But since Isaiah isn't here, I'll give quick credit to the Yankees for being so good, but then also give them a little trash talking because hopefully to inspire Isaiah to come on and defend his team in the future. 58-22, no way that holds up. They're not going to break the record for wins in a season. Sorry, Yankees fans. Like, you've got it going good. They may be the winners of the regular season, but you know who else likes to say that all the time? The freaking Los Angeles Dodgers. And how many World Series have they won recently? Only one, and it was a freaking Mickey Mouse Disney World Championship in 2020. And the Yankees, they're not going to win it this year. They haven't won since 2009. Not the greatest franchise in baseball, if you have to ask me, at least for the last decade and a half or so. I mean, that would have to go to the team that's won the most World Series in the San Francisco Giants. But nonetheless, a lot of that is facetious. The Yankees have been really good. Just want to give the Yankees some hard times because they haven't had many hard times so far this season. So pretty interesting. I think they're going to run away with that division, and the rest of that division is going to be interesting to watch. I love the Cleveland Guardians climbing up close to the Twins. Did not expect the Twins and the Guardians to be above the White Sox entering the season. So the White Sox really need to turn it around. Tony La Russa, Mr. Dinosaur, has not been doing much to help that team out a lot. And the Twins have been really good. Rocco Baldelli is a really good manager, and the Guardians just seem to have a lot of guys having career seasons and, sort of melding together well. And then also, obviously, you got the AL West or freaking Oakland A's. I mean, at least I'm not like some of the other teams, like, I don't know, something like the Reds or the Cubs or something, where it's just like, you had some expectations entering the season of your team not being absolutely terrible. I knew the A's were going to be terrible, and we were all pissed about it when they traded away Olsen and Chapman. Like, I knew they were going to be bad. I didn't think maybe they'd be the worst team in baseball by a pretty good margin, but yeah, it's really disappointing to watch. I don't have much to say about the Astros. They have been perennially good since like 2017, 2016. I wish the Mariners were better. I would love to see them sneak into that wild card race since there's so many options, so many opportunities to do that now. But yeah, there's not much to say in that division other than, rest in peace, the Oakland A's for at least the next like 5 years.
Yeah.
Freaking Angels. God dang.
The Oakland A's, currently the Oakland A's have the worst record in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So A's are bad. That owner should sell the team. He's a shyster.
Bro, God.
The Oakland A's are a historic franchise, Yeah, dude, we're poor. Yeah, my
Sure.
ass.
Yeah.
They should never be this bad. No baseball team should be this bad on purpose, and they're bad on
Yeah.
purpose, and that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So yeah, Oakland A's worst team in baseball. The Los Angeles Angels might as well be because they're going to miss the playoffs again, and they actually have high expectations.
So stupid.
A couple other teams to mention. Royals, I think they were the worst team in baseball last month. Not
Yeah.
anymore. 29-49. Let's go. Shout out to the Royals, led by gentrified. Not a gentrified. Geriatric Zach Greinke and his young kids, Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez, Nick Pratto and company.
Vinny
Soon.
Pasquantino,
the GOAT. So. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see the White Sox struggling here. They're managed by a man who should not be anywhere close to baseball anymore because he is a dinosaur. He's 1 million years old. Tony La Russa should not be managing a Major League Baseball team.
he's literally in the Hall of Fame. He retired long enough to make the Hall of Fame.
That's stupid. He should not be. He should not be managing a team in the year of our Lord 2022. Tony La Russa needs to go. The White Sox are completely squandering any potential that they had. And everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to be so good." Yeah, you're kind of getting floored right now by the Twins, who were awful last year, and the Guardians, who signed nobody. So yeah, I think they need to hold that for a little bit. Hopefully, they'll turn it around. My hopes are not very high for them. Yeah. AL, I think we've wrapped it up pretty good. On to the NL. Best record in the NL currently by one game is held by the Los Angeles Dodgers, followed very closely by the New York Mets, who are leading the NL East, followed very closely behind by the Atlanta Braves, who are 47-34, to the Mets 50-30, and then in leading the not so one horse race anymore. NL Central, who is still, for my money, probably the worst division in baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are 47-35. So the NL, I think, is a little bit more cut and dry than the AL. The races are not super, super tight. I mean, the Padres are trying to chase down the Dodgers as well, but like the Giants are 40-38. The NL Central, they're trying.
Watch it.
They're trying their best, man. Jock just needs to hit 1 million more home runs. They need to be able to pitch.
I see that happening, definitely.
I hope so. I would love that. I hope Jock hits 80 home runs this year. But yeah, it's a weird league. I don't really want to talk about what's going on in the NL Central, other than the Reds, who have the worst division, or who have the worst record in the NL, which is very good. 27-52, trying. Hopefully they'll win 3 more. They can tie the Oakland A's, or they lose 3 more, they'll tie the Oakland A's. So yeah, I mean, NL, a little bit more cut and dry. I'll let you talk about it a little bit, and then I'll talk about maybe a couple more things you didn't touch on.
Yeah. The New York teams are just dominating baseball so far this year. That NL East race is pretty interesting, with the Braves still being really good, and the Phillies, if they can hold tight without Bryce Harper, they could be in there as well. I think, like you were saying, the NL Central is getting pretty tight, with the Cardinals having 4 homer games and cycle games. They're probably going to keep moving up, but there's really not much competition there. They just got to beat up on the Pirates, the Cubs, and the Reds, especially the Reds. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. I think a lot of us had noted in our preseason predictions that the Cardinals wouldn't make it into the postseason after making it last year. With the expanded playoffs, they seem to be easily making it this year. And yeah, I love what's been going on in the NL West. The Dodgers, obviously, I don't love that being the best team in the National League, but the Padres are giving them a run for their money. And I think, once they get Tatis back in like a few weeks, hopefully, fingers crossed, especially for my TGFBI team, they could really make the Dodgers start sweating, shaking in their boots. And the Giants, I think they're like 2 games above 500, which isn't a lot, but I really think that the way that they've been able to manage their team recently, that they're going to be able to at least sneak into a wild card spot. I mean, obviously they're probably not going to win this division, but we saw them win the division last year with a franchise record number of wins. And yeah, the rest of that division is pretty trash. But yeah, it's really exciting out there in the NL West. Exciting to see what happens in the second half of the season. We are now officially halfway through the season. I think most teams have played 81 games so far. So a lot of people like to say first half is up to the All-Star break. Technically that's what it is. But if you want to go by number of games, we are currently halfway through the season. As you can see, like the Dodgers have only played 79 games, but then you have the Padres that played like 82. So it's sort of all over the place. Some teams are past the halfway point, some teams aren't. But yeah, you can call this podcast the halfway point in the season, giving us a lot more time to talk about baseball for the rest of the season. We will keep going into the playoffs. We will keep going into the off season. I always have stuff to talk about. We can do just fantasy baseball only podcast. But yeah, stay tuned for the rest of the season and into next year, because we like this freaking world record 2-hour podcast. We always have a lot to talk about. And yeah, it's been a really exciting season so far this year. I can't remember when we were podcasting, just a few months ago, and it was just like the whole baseball season was in peril. Like we didn't even think we were going to have a season. And now we get to see, Julio Rodriguez from day one. We get to see Emmanuel Clase throwing 100-mile-per-hour fastballs, and Shane McClanahan and Sandy Alcantara make me look like a genius. It's been a lot of fun. Do you have like a singular moment that's been your most fun thing, other than Seiya Suzuki hitting a inside the park home run off Josh Hader last night?
Yeah, that one was probably it. I wish they won. I hate Josh Hader more than anything. I still think he's a racist. So seeing Seiya Suzuki hit a home run off of him and inside the Parker in his first game back. Shout out to Seiya Suzuki. He's the GOAT. Yeah, Chicago Cubs are bad at baseball, man. They're so bad. Of course, if you watched every pod, I'm a Cubs fan. If you haven't, here's your introduction to me. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. It's like an AA meeting. I hate saying it because it feels like an addiction to something that hurts me more than it does anything. The Chicago Cubs are 32-48. This is a team that's worth, I think it's the 4th highest valuation for any franchise in baseball. They are god awful. Jed Hoyer does not have a plan. They're not going to go anywhere. As Hanover said, yeah, it's all doom and gloom. It's pretty good. Chicago Cubs, they stink. But you can point and laugh at like the White Sox, who are also bad. That's kind of cool. It's difficult to say really like where a lot of like the like bad teams are going to be. Because there are a couple teams like that are around 500 that I could really see trying to pick it up like a little bit. Like I think the Giants are obviously a little bit better than 40-38. Like, I mean, they were the best team in the NL West last year. They're not a 40-38 team. They've got to be better than that. There's teams like the Phillies who are 42-38 who obviously have lost Harper now, which sucks for them. But maybe if they just somehow convince Schwarber that it's June in July and then in August and then September and then October, they could maybe potentially give it a run.
Just like hijack his Apple calendar and just make it like June always.
Yeah, just convince him. Just wake him up, like hypnotize him or something. Bring in a hypnotist and convince him.
Wake me up.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to see him like just be convinced it's June the whole year. The Marlins are right around 500, of course. The NL Central is the worst in baseball. It's the worst division by far. Pirates, fun but bad. Good. Cubs, bad but not fun. And the Reds, definitely bad and definitely not fun. And the Brewers, who cares? Cardinals, who cares? Apart from us talking about Paul Goldschmidt and Norman Aramondo every podcast, get tired of those two guys. And then I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. So we've talked for almost 2 hours. Let's wrap it up, man. Let's wrap it up. I think it is an absolutely wonderful time. Hand you the bullpen phone. Make the call. Why don't you bring in the closer?
Yes. Hello, bullpen. This is the manager speaking. I would like to get the closer warmed up and bring him in for the 9th inning. Actually, this is an extra innings podcast. That's why we're called Free Baseball. So we're calling him up for the 12th inning. It's Drew Storen. Drew Storen is a recent pitcher that pitched recently. Great word choices there from yours truly, but I had to once again go with a shorter career because I was running out of time. As the Tyler the Creator song says. Nonetheless, Storen is worthy of honoring in this podcast to close it out. He had an 8-year career from 2010 to 2017. He pitched for the Nationals, the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and the Reds. It mostly came with the Nationals. He was drafted by the Yankees in the 34th round of the 2007 draft. He did not sign because he had a premonition that he would be signed 2 years later in the first round as the 10th overall pick out of the University of Stanford, which is right over by where I live. So shout out Stanford, even though I am more of a Cal fan and they're like the Dodgers to the Giants out here. So either way, the weirdest part about Storen is that Baseball Reference suggests that his nickname is Homage, Homage, which I have no idea why that is his nickname.
I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, I literally have zero idea. You're going to have to let me know. But he featured a 4-seamer, a 2-seamer, and a slider. He threw in the mid to high 90s on those fastballs and the mid 80s on the slider. So Homage was paying homage to his fallen brethren of relievers that didn't make it to the majors. He debuted in May of 2010 against the St. Louis Cardinals. He got 2 outs. Didn't allow a hit, didn't allow a run, didn't allow a walk, and struck out one of the 2 batters he faced. He finished that rookie season with a pretty solid season. He finished out the season as the closer as well. He had a 3.58 ERA and 5 saves in his rookie season. And by his second season, he was already the full-time closer in Washington, and he was able to produce the best season of his career in 2011. He had 75 and a third innings pitched. He struck out 74 batters, came with a 2.75 ERA, a 1.02 whip, and a career best 43 saves, a number he would never come close to again. But that was like my when I first started playing MLB The Show, and Drew Storen was one of the best players in the game, and he was really exciting to watch back then when I was watching baseball as a child, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, as like a 13-year-old. But nonetheless, the next season, he missed the first half of the 2012 season because he had surgery to remove a bone spur, and he wasn't able to take the closer role back from Tyler Clippard. When he returned, he still got 4 saves and a 2.37 ERA, and he was the closer in the playoffs, and that sort of was the wrong choice because he, blew a couple saves, and then they replaced him as the closer the following year in 2013. Once again, they signed Rafael Soriano in the offseason to be the closer. He was a middle reliever. He was optioned to AAA midseason and called back up. It was definitely one of his worst seasons, definitely his worst season in Washington. He had a 4.52 ERA, only got 3 saves, but he bounced back in 2014 with a career low 1.12 ERA. He saved 11 ball games, and he got the closer role back the following year in 2015. Wasn't his best season, but still he had a 3.44 ERA, a 1.11 whip, and 29 saves, which is the second most of his career, and the last time he would be a clear closer, because halfway through that season, recent bring in the closer candidate Jonathan Papelbon was acquired by the Nationals halfway through the 2015 season, and Storen got moved to the setup role where he really wasn't that great. He was traded to the Blue Jays prior to the 2016 season for Ben Revere, another remember that name. Think back and remember Ben Revere along with Drew Storen. He was not good for the Blue Jays. 6.21 ERA, 33 innings, and only got 3 saves. So they traded him at the deadline that season in 2016. So he's traded twice in the span of like a year. So he was all right for the Mariners, though. 3.44 ERA in 18 innings. He was traded for Joaquin Benoit, another remembered name. He was really good for the Tigers and was not too great for the Blue Jays. But nonetheless, he finished out his career signing with the Reds prior to the 2017 season as a free agent. He had a 4.45 ERA and 54.2 innings pitched, where he secured the final save of his career. And that was it for his MLB career. He had a season-ending and MLB career-ending Tommy John surgery. He would try to come back. I think it was with the Padres or something. He wasn't able to come back to the majors. I think he pitched in the minors. But yeah, that wrapped up his career. That wrapped up his pretty short career, where he seemed like one of the upcoming, new best closers in baseball, when his second season saw him save 43 games. And then from there, it was sort of downhill, up and down, roller coaster type stuff like the Padres jerseys. And nonetheless, he finished his career with a 4.8 B WAR across 440 innings pitched with 417 strikeouts. He was 1 off of 100 saves, 99 saves for his career. He had a 3.45 ERA and a 1.20 whip. He tied for 161st all time on the all-time saves leaderboard with those 99 saves, and he's tied with Jorge Julio, Firpo Marbury, and AJ Ramos. Firpo Marbury is just an interesting name. I've heard it before. I don't know anything about him, but you can bet your bottom dollar that he will be closing out one of these podcasts in the future. But yeah, that will do it. You got any final thoughts for me, or any news on his nickname of Homage?
Yeah, I think it's either a t-shirt company that he's sponsored by, or he said to the Cincinnati Enquirer during the Little League like player weekend or whatever, that he wanted to pay homage to Andy Messersmith. And Andy Messersmith was very important in the ruling to actually integrate free agency into the game of baseball with Marvin Miller and Curt Flood, which is pretty cool. That's interesting enough. I also learned in that article that, funnily enough, Scooter Gennett's nickname, remember him name.
4 home run game guy.
Yeah, Scooter Gennett for his player weekend name just chose Ryan, which is his actual first name, which I thought was really funny.
Yes, so, sir. And then
that's
Stephen
all I could
Curry's
find.
Would be Wardell.
Yeah, there you go. So that's all I could find about him. But I'm glad Drew Storen could close out the podcast. Super extra innings. Feels like we went forever, which we did. It's almost 2 hours and 5 minutes. But plug our socials a little bit. I'm Davis Bird. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter at DVSBird, where I'll complain about sports, mostly the Cubs, and several other things. You can find Jake Crumpler at Jake Crumpler on Twitter as well, and our third co-host, Isaiah Hansen, at Isaiah2896 on Twitter as well. You can check out all the rest of our podcasts on YouTube. You can check out all of our articles at theathleteshub.org, and you can find read all of Jake's stuff. You can read all of Jake's stuff also with pitcherlist.com and with Baseball HQ. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and make sure you read all the stuff. He's really good. He does a bunch of stuff for fantasy baseball, but like he said earlier, it's just good baseball content. If you love baseball, read all the stuff. It's really good. I read it. I love baseball. You should too. So check with us again. We usually go on every Monday at 4, but of course, because of the 4th, things are kind of different today. So we went on today. But check back in with us next Monday at 4, where we probably won't go for 2 hours that time, but we had a lot to talk about this time.
Yes, we did.
And that's everything.
All right.